Hi, everybody. Welcome to today's Conservancy Day program. We're happy you can join us. I am Ann Boucher, the Education Coordinator for the Friends of Pheasant Branch Conservancy. We're really excited to have Drew Cashman and Brenna Marsacek here. I hope I said it right. From Madison Audubon to talk with us about the Bald Eagle Nest Watch program. Before we start, I'd like to take a moment to tell you about the Friends. We just celebrated our 25th anniversary. We've worked hard to help the city and the county make Pheasant Branch Conservancy the amazing place it is today. We advocate for its watershed, we conduct education and outreach activities, and we have a major role in the restoration of the land in the Conservancy. If you're not a member of the Friends, we urge you to join or make a donation. Every dollar is needed and it is put to good use. I'll put the link for joining in the chat section of the presentation. We are currently in the second year of an ambitious Seed the Need campaign to raise $100,000 to create a platinum prairie in the new acre parcel addition to the Conservancy. A platinum prairie is comprised of more than 100 native plant species. This diversity helps restore the most robust prairie we can and provides a seed source for prairies all over Dane County. I'll also put that link into the chat section. The Friends have been sponsoring these talks for the past 10 years or more. They're held on the third Thursday of the month from January to November. We met virtually from last September until this past May. And then this summer, we were able to hold 3 outdoor programs. It was really wonderful to be out in the Conservancy doing that and enjoying the weather. We do plan to meet virtually from now until next May. We polled viewers of these presentations, and that was their overwhelming choice. They wanted to keep these on Zoom. You can see here what some of our past topics have been this year, and we have our upcoming topic is on November 18th, and it's about the Saltwise program in Wisconsin, and its coordinator, Allison Madison, will be joining us. Now, before I turn this over to Drew and Brenna, I just want to remind everybody about Zoom etiquette. Please keep yourself muted and please turn off your video feed. We are not on Zoom webinar. We're on Zoom, regular Zoom. So everyone can hear everybody else and it can be distracting if you leave your audio on. Another thing is choose speaker view for watching the presentation. And that way you'll see who's speaking and have a good view of the slides. I will handle all the comments and all the questions at the end. If you put them into the chat, I'll monitor those. And during our Q&A period at the end, I'll bring them to Brenna and Drew's attention. And you should know that I am recording this presentation because we'll put it up on our YouTube channel for people to view who couldn't make it today. And I'll also have a link in our chat to provide to a feedback form. I'd love to get your impressions of our presentation today and the Conservancy Day programs overall and get ideas that you might have for the future. With that, I'm going to turn this over to Drew and Brenna from Madison Audubon. We're really excited to have you guys, and it's all yours.
Wonderful. Thank you, Anne. Thank you all for being here. My name is Brenna Marsacek. Drew Cashman, can you wave as well so everyone can see? I can't see many of you, but it's great to know that you're all here, and including a few volunteers for Bald Eagle Nest Watch. I see Fred and Brenda and Lena on the call. So it's really nice to see all your names and hopefully get to know you in the future. I'm going to share my screen here so that we can jump right in. So tonight we're here to talk about Bald Eagle Nest Watch, which is one of Madison Audubon's, I think, one of our best citizen science programs. We launched this program in 2018 after Drew came to our office and said, I want to do this thing. And we were like, okay, yes, let's do this thing. I'll let Drew tell you more about the history of how he's been involved with this type of work himself. But we are so pleased to be able to host this program, and with the help of Drew, and this year, over 200 volunteers being able to monitor eagle nests from 19 different counties in Wisconsin. So here we go. So as I mentioned, we started our program. Our first survey period was in beginning February 2018. And we were just partnering with the Wisconsin DNR. They shared with us the nest coordinates for the counties that we were interested in working. And in return, we signed a confidentiality agreement, and our volunteers received training and all sorts of preparedness to be able to monitor their eagle nests. This was our first training session. We went out to one of Madison's local natural areas. It was a fabulous day and people were super excited, as you can see. And there are a number of people who are in this photo that still monitor with us today. So that was 2018. 2019, we grew a little. 2020, we grew some more. 2020 was obviously when COVID hit, and this was a great opportunity for people to be able to still engage with citizen science and being outdoors in a really safe and interesting way, because this is all independently done or done with people in households, and everything is outside. So it was a great thing to do during a pandemic. And then in 2021, we grew even more. So we began partnering with Thousand Islands Environmental Center in Kaukauna, Wisconsin, which is in the Fox River Valley. And that led to expanding our program into 3 counties in that area, bringing our total to 17 that you see on this map here. So most of southern Wisconsin, 3 counties from Fox River Valley, and then we had a couple of other people monitoring a nest on and off up north, which is not included in this map. So over the course of 4 years, you can see here how our program has evolved and expanded. It's been really incredible, and the people who are involved in this are 100% to receive the credit for this, because it relies on boots on the ground, and Drew and I are so grateful for everyone's help. So beginning in 2018, we were mostly in Dane County with about 15 nests. As you can see, we had about 15 fledglings. And this past season, we had 100 nests that we were monitoring with the help of over 200 volunteers, with 146 fledglings coming from that. 2022, we hope to grow again, so stay tuned.
And you want me to take over, Brenna?
Yeah, go for it, Drew.
Okay. Hi, everybody. Welcome. Thanks for joining us. For our volunteers that are here, that are with the program, thank you. You guys are amazing. Just the best group of people. And I really enjoy, interacting with you guys. Not as much, mostly over email lately, but hopefully over the next coming years, we can visit nests together and do a lot of that other stuff, which is a lot of fun to do. So first, how did we start this program? We partnered, as Brenna had mentioned, we partnered with the Wisconsin DNR. This is a map that they put together. As you can see, from 1974 to 2019, the eagle population just exploded after the banning of DDT, and really came back to the area. So as you can see, most of northern Wisconsin, it's got one of the biggest concentrations of bald eagles in the entire continental US. So we're blessed with that in the state of Wisconsin. And What the DNR has been doing historically is they started out with doing 2 flyovers of the nest per season. So they'd start early in the season, I think it was in March, to fly all over, all over the counties and to check on the nest. So they did a quick flyover there to say, hey, is the nest there? Is it active? And what exactly are the eagles doing? And then they did a second flight, I believe it was later in the season, just to check back on that nest to see, did they have eaglets? Were they still active? So they had done that for a while till we came onto the scene. With the rise of population, there was less of a initiative, I guess, to watch over these nests. So they cut back to 1 flyover per season. I think most of it, depending on the county, was around the March, April timeframe. So they had a small snapshot of what was going on at these nests, but not a real good picture of what was going on. And now with the pandemic and also with another cutbacks on their fly over budget for eagles, a lot of the nests, for example, all the nests that we monitor in Dane County, we are the only ones that watch that nest. They don't do any other flyovers at the DNR for those. So we have kind of gone into a real good role for providing information to the DNR as to what is going on at the nest, so they can still get an idea of what's going on. So they cut back. What we do at the Nest Watch, for those that are not involved with the group, is it's a weekly visit of about an hour out at the nest. As you can see this on the slide, there's a data sheet that our volunteers fill out with all kinds of behaviors, temperature, what the weather's like, and all that information. So they're out there. We're out there once a week, starting in early February till hopefully, if the nest is successful, till fledge, which usually is around that May, June timeframe is the most common time for them to fledge. And it does vary from area to area. As we go a little bit farther north, they get started a little bit later into February. So what we have done is taken from the DNR, where they were getting 1 or 2 snapshots historically, to a whole season. So we're giving them data from the start of the season all the way to fledge, which they really appreciate. And it gives them a much better idea of what's going on, because frankly, with the flyovers, they'd get a small snapshot, but they really didn't know what was going at the nest. Did they ended up failing later in the season? Did something happen? They just didn't have a real good idea what's going on. So with that, we could really get a good idea of what's going on with the eagles, and hopefully help them and conserve them as much as possible, and let them to build on that. The great thing about the Nest Watch is this is a big bird, and they have a very big nest, if you're familiar with it. And it's really easy for beginners to pick up with it. Our volunteers are very diverse. We have from people that weren't considering themselves birders, to expert birders. So we just run the gamut of what people's appreciation of birds are. So it's a really good citizen science program to get started. If you wanted to get into citizen science and conservation and ecology. So that's one of the benefits. And then the behaviors are real easy to teach and real apparent. I'll get into that a little bit later on in the talk. But it's a fun experience, and we've gotten a lot of great feedback at the Madison Audubon from our volunteers about that. I have been doing this just to give you a little background into me. My family's moved around a little bit, but we started out in Colorado I volunteer for a group out there that's been doing nest watch since I think it was the late 80s. So they've been doing it for a very long time. And then we had moved to the Albany, New York area. I had set up a nest watch there because I couldn't find anything that was the same as Colorado, and I really wanted to still experience being out at the nest and doing all that. They're still going strong, so they're going into their 6th season. And then when I moved to Madison, I started with the help of Brenna and the Madison Audubon, started this program, which is going into the 5th year. So that's been a very fun ride for that. But what we have through the years, I've kind of come to a conclusion that there's 3 main roles that the volunteers do. And the first one's really the citizen science, filling out the forms, observing the nest weekly. This is some of the pictures of some of our volunteers. That picture with Lynn that Lynn took is so cute with Grandpa. So that they are out there at the nest and watching their nest, looking through the season to say, okay, what's going at the nest? Is it active at first? Does it stay active? Did they lay eggs? Did the eggs hatch? And were they successful with eaglets? And how many ended up fledging at the season? So that's really the main focus of the role for volunteers. A second role is as an ambassador educator. And what I mean by that is some of the nests are high traffic in places where there's a lot of foot traffic in parks and in other spots that might be a little more urban. They're educating the general public. They get a lot of people asking what they're doing and really promoting and, being that ambassador and for the community, for their nest, talking about the nest, telling the general public what's going on, and also the do's and don'ts, because there is, even though they're a big bird, they are a little sensitive to human disturbances and human activity around their nest. They will, if it is disturbed enough, will abandon their nest and their eaglets or eggs or whatever's in the nest. So we really try to with our volunteers to educate people on the do's and don'ts. Through the years, I've gotten some of the craziest questions, and it's just, as you can see, we're viewing them from scopes at a distance and really giving the eagles enough space to do their thing and for us to still be able to see what they're up to. The third role that I've come across is the watchdog for the nest. And basically what that is, that's more of if there are emergencies. We've had some, it's always happening that we've had some nests fall down that the volunteers discovered, or there's been some human disturbances, people around that doing stuff they shouldn't be doing close to the nest, and we note those and really take pride in protecting the nest, and especially their individual nest, and keeping an eye on that. A lot of our volunteers have built relationships with the neighborhood too, with the neighbors or the landowners, and they will let them know if something happened. So there's a lot of pride in having a bald eagle nest in your neighborhood or on your land, and they want to protect that. So it's from my experience, it's mostly positive on that way. People are very excited to have bald eagles on their property or in their neighborhood or whatnot. And then we get to kind of our secondary, but I think overall it's probably going to be very important, and that's our role to kind of study and give the DNR data on the eagles and human interaction, because as the population grows for humans and for eagles, there's just going to be more and more interaction, and we have seen that just from the, the 4 years that we've been doing it, developments growing up around nests, and there's just more interaction. And what we're trying to do is kind of thread that needle where they both can coexist. And that's been, Brent and I have done that several times in trying to broker something that's, that gives the eagles enough space to do their thing, but also the landowners or business owners or whatnot are still able to do what they want to do. So that's, I think going forward, that's going to be more and more of our role. And I think it's a very important role for them to do that. And just some examples of what we've done, as you can see this here in the slide, is we've had some unfortunate incidences where our volunteers have had to bring eagles that were either sick or fell out of the nest or whatnot, or needed some help to rehabbers. So we've done that actually a number of times this past season, as well as putting up signage. As you can see that at one of our nests, pretty high profile nest here in Dane County, we just wanted to give the eagles the space. So we kind of marked out where you should stay behind, just to stay far enough away to let them do their own thing and not be disturbed. Other things that we've done is, again, I mentioned a little bit, is working with landowners. I think vast majority has been positive, and just interacting with them to make sure that they're that there is a coexistence between the landowners and the eagles. We've also had some, one that I didn't even know that was going to be a threat, and we had this experience a few years ago at one of the nests, was the timing of burns, of controlled burns. There was a nest that unfortunately lost a couple eaglets when there was a controlled burn in the spring too close to the nest. So we worked with that, and we've also worked with the times with construction companies and other projects with the timing of building or doing construction, and trying to recommend that they do, if possible, to do these sort of activities in the off season where it's not affecting the eagles during the breeding season. So in that summer and fall time frame right now is actually a pretty good time. They're not super active now, so if we can get those projects and activities that would disturb the eagles done in that time frame, so that the eagles can have the best chance of being successful as the season progresses. And at this time, I'm going to go over just how the breeding season and the timing. This is actually the pheasant branch nest, and most of you probably have seen this nest. We're really excited about this. This is they were successful year. That little guy that was in the nest fledged and is off on its own, doing its own thing now. So that was great. The first season with the nest, they did fail. That's pretty common with the younger pairs. We do know that this pair was pretty young, actually, not this season, the season before. The female definitely still had some brown on her head, which indicates that she was a younger female, probably just reaching adulthood. So this is a younger pair, and they were successful. So we were really excited about that. To have a pheasant branch nest. It's a great area, as you probably all know. It's a great area for eagles, and great area for all kinds of wildlife. So we were really excited about that. So what we start with, and the first question I usually get a lot, is what are they doing now? The eagles right now are kind of getting ready. I know, for instance, we have a nest in Dane County that fell down in the off season, and we've gotten word that pair is very active, building a nest in another nearby tree. So if they're in that kind of situation, they'll be building, they'll be refurbishing a little bit. They're kind of hit or miss right now. You may, if you are out at a nest, you may see them, you may not. as it progresses closer to the breeding season, that they get more consistently there. So right now they're doing kind of doing their own thing, being a little more leisurely. They're still in kind of vacation mode, I guess you would say, before the breeding season. But they'll start getting active as we get in closer to winter into the breeding season. And then we get to the breeding season. This is them doing the deed. This is usually around, at most of the nests is in February, early to mid-February. There's an old saying about bald eagles that they are romantic birds, and that they will have eggs in the nest by around Valentine's Day. It doesn't happen all the time, but there's definitely a lot of the nests that are on eggs by Valentine's Day. As you can see here, this is what we're seeing as a behavior for egg incubating. So they're deep in the nest. A lot of times you miss them, you don't see them. They are so deep in the nest, you might just see that white head, or you might see a little bit of movement. That's why we use, the scopes and binoculars, so we can get a better view of that. But they do that. So they'll be incubating eggs. The female, after a successful copulation, it's about 5 days, after successful copulation, she'll lay one egg. She'll wait a day or two and lay another day or two and probably lay another. So it's usually about 1 to 3 eggs. Most nests, it's 2 or 3. Obviously, since we don't have a nest cam, we don't have a great idea of how many they actually laid. But that's been the historical data, is that it's usually about 1 to 3 eggs are laid. And then they get progress and incubate for about 35 days until hatching. And again, the eggs will hatch in a staggered time frame. So that older egg, that first egg, will hopefully hatch first, and then the second one, and then hopefully the third one. During this case, you see a small shift in what they're doing. For instance, this eagle, they obviously, because of the hatchlings needing to breathe, you'll see them sit up a little higher, and it's most people consider it's brooding. We consider it incubating too, but brooding is the term as well. And then they as they hatch, there are some cases where you'll have a hatch and you'll also have eggs too, but that's right at the beginning of time. You'll see that characteristic. So for instance, this one, it'll be just sitting up a little bit higher to allow the small eaglets to breathe. And they start off very, very small. They are about 2.5 ounces when they hatch, and they're completely dependent on the adults. And then they grow very quickly, as you see in this one. This is a little, call them the fuzzy heads. They're very cute. And this is when we start to see them about 2 to 3 weeks after hatch. We'll start to see these guys, these little heads pop up, and they grow. They keep growing from there. And as you can see in this picture, the adult is feeding them, and then they get the little fuzzy gray guys. They're super cute as well. This is a little bit older one, probably about I'd say probably a 3 or 4 week old in that time frame, and they get a little more independent. And at this point, that the adults don't need to incubate them. As you can see, they have these the fuzzy down that'll keep them warm, so they're a little more self-sufficient there. And then they keep growing from there. This is actually one of my nests. This is a good size, guys. I think at this point they're probably about 6 to 7 weeks old. At that point, that's really a good milestone for us. If they get to this size eagle, there's a really good shot that they'll fledge. A lot of times where we lose eaglets, it's really that first part that's real crucial. In that 1 to 4 week period is the toughest time, and that's where we lose some. But when these guys, for instance, both fledged and were very successful. So, and then they keep growing from there. After hatch, eagles fledge at about 8 to 12 weeks. Most of the time it's in that 10 to 12 week. I haven't really, honestly, I don't think I've ever, I know it's happened, but it's not that, it's usually a little too early to hatch it for them to fledge at 8 weeks. But they start flapping and strengthening those wing muscles and getting ready for the big day. And then after that, they do what's called branching, which is basically it's what it sounds like. They get out on a branch and they're flapping like this guy and getting ready, and then eventually they take that first flight, and then they fledge like this guy. This is what actually we're really lucky. One of our volunteers got a great shot of one of the flying fledging. So it's very exciting time, and we really enjoy that. We had an unbelievable year and a lot of highlights for the program this year. Our partnership with the Thousand Islands Environmental Center brought back some really great data as well. One of them was that we had a trio nest that we discovered early in the season that's been going. I think they've been doing this for about two to 3 years. And it's really interesting. This is a super rare occurrence. As you see, typically what they do is the pair will defend their territory pretty violently from other adults. They don't appreciate other adults. So it's really hard to say what's going on there, but something, whatever instinct, or if this is another sibling or whatever it is, they decide to form a trio. And this pair, for instance, I believe they fledged three babies this year too as well. So that's real interesting. And then the Thousand Islands Environmental Center, which is actually about 10 miles from this other one, they saw 4 eaglets, which is super rare. That doesn't happen very often at all. If you want to learn a little bit more, you can go on the Thousand Islands Environmental Center's website, and they have a little kind of like a blog and videos that shows what was going on the nest in the season. You can look through it. And then on top of that, a little while later, they came across a video where there was 3 adults. So this nest actually had probably 2 of the rarest occurrences in the bald eagle world. They had 3 adults and 4 eaglets. So that was unbelievable. We're speculating just purely on size. The adult females are usually about 20% bigger than the males typically. So we think that there was probably 2 females and 1 male at this Thousand Islands nest. And my guess is they probably both laid 2 eggs, just because it's such a, similar to humans, giving birth and forming these eggs takes a lot out of the female eagle. So for an adult eagle to lay 4 eggs, that would really, tap into all her resources. She'd lose a lot of weight. So we're thinking that most likely, these 2 females probably laid 2 eggs each. But it's hard to say for sure, and we're really excited to see what happens this next year coming up, to see what they do as far as that. And also a lot of our highlights were we had 13 instances of intervention in 2021, and this is interventions could be just putting up signs at sites. It was also rerouting trails, closing trails. For instance, we had to actually close the trail at that Pheasant branch to give the Pheasant branch pair a little more space. There's a trail that kind of goes basically right under the nest that we had the city shut down. So things like that. We also had some rescues of eaglets. There was a few instances. One was a nest fell down, and unfortunately, we rescued the eaglets, one of the eaglets, but unfortunately it didn't make it. There was just too many, with the nest falling out, just had too many injuries to survive. But then there was also a lot of success in, there was a few that fell out of the nest that we were able to get to rehabbers, and we're successfully rehabbing. Some of them are still at the rehabbers, still getting stronger, and will be released pretty soon, probably in the winter or fall, depending on how they're doing as well. And then also, working with landowners and businesses to, curtail some of the activity that they might be doing on their land to outside the breeding season. So we had a number of those as well. And then we put together, with the help of the DNR, to put together a recommendation for control burns, so that if there is an instance where a control burn, which are important around a nest sites, that they get done in the fall instead of the spring, so out of the season, so they're not causing any issues at the nest. And that's about it. That's all I have for you guys. And I really appreciate, again, you joining us, and to our volunteers that are here.
Yeah, we really encourage people to get involved in this program. So if you're interested in joining in, you can go to our website and fill out the volunteer interest form. A lot of the nests that are within Madison and the nearby area are monitored by returning volunteers. We have a very strong volunteer base that comes back year after year. And so usually nests that are assigned at this point are either new nests that come up over the course of the fall and winter, or they're nests that are fairly far afield, so would require a significant amount of driving to get to. Or if you live in places outside of Madison and are interested, we can no doubt find a nest in your area that would be a good match. So if you know of a nest and you want to report it, if you think maybe it hasn't been discovered by anyone yet, we'd love to hear about those. And with that, we'll take any questions that you might have.
I think people are still formulating questions, but I remember I saw the pheasant branch nest early on and realized that they had shut the trail down early on, which was great because it was so accessible. You could park your car and be near it in 2 minutes, and it's amazing that they were successful there. How do you know it's the same eagles that come back to the nests year after year?
Some of the pairs, they do have some subtle colorations. It's hard to say for sure. There are some birds that are tagged too. I don't think we have any that I know of in our eagle pairs, but it's hard to say for sure if it's the same pair coming back. Typically they will nest, they will still stay together as long as both members of the pair are healthy and nothing happened to them in the off season. They'll stay together. So most likely it is. Most likely, I've heard, for instance, the pheasant branch pair, with them being so young, it most likely these guys will be together for a long time, hopefully, as long as nothing happens. Again, some of the more experienced pairs, there is that chance that a bald eagle in the wild typically lives about 25 years. Some of the older birds, it might be a different member. And sometimes you do come across it where there is an indication that you're like, okay, there was one there wasn't something going on. You might have saw the male out at the nest. He was by himself. We're a little concerned, maybe what's going on here. And then he finds a new mate. So sometimes you can figure out that it's a new, new member of the pair, but a lot of times it's hard to tell.
If people want to put their questions in the chat, that would be great. Here's one. How often do volunteers visit the nests?
It's a weekly visit for about an hour. We start in like February. So you go out to your nest territory whenever is convenient for you. Most of the nests, we have 2 nest teams. We try to get at least 2 volunteers on each nest, just because people want to take vacations, they want to do that, and we want to make this a pleasurable experience where you don't have to feel like, okay, oh God, I got to go out to the nest, and I can't take vacations or whatever. So we try to have coverage at each nest that is at least 2 groups of people. A lot of people, they'll go out with their spouse or their friends. They'll have nest teams, and then some people go out individually. So it all depends on their situation. But we try to have two people per nest, and then it's a weekly visit for about an hour to see what's going on. The reason we chose this is kind of my experience from Colorado and New York and stuff. Usually an hour visit, there's going to be something happening. A lot of times if you go to a nest for 10-15 minutes, you might not see anything. So we try to get it to where you're actually going to a timing that you're going to actually see some activity and what's going on. That's that reason. I know I get a lot of questions of why is it an hour? It just seems to be that's where you get the activity. I can't count how many times I've been at a nest for 45 to 50 minutes and absolutely nothing goes on, and then all of a sudden, right before when I'm about to leave, everything breaks out. There's just flying around and everything. So it just seems to fit that hour time frame. It seems to have some sort of activity. You're going to see something during that time frame.
Cool. Here's a question. Do the kids build nests nearby? And how old are they when they begin mating?
An eagle takes about it's either 4 or 5 years to get to that, our standard, the white head and white tail plumage. Typically, I think the pheasant branch nest, she probably got started right at time, but I don't think a lot of them when they're 5 years old are in nesting. They might be in pair bounding and trying to figure out where they want to have a nest territory and who they want to mate with. I know they've done a lot of research on whether these fledgling that are fledging every year go back to their area. It's pretty standard. I know I read something that typically they stick around about a 500-mile radius to where they were hatched and fledged from. But they've had instances where a bird was tagged in Massachusetts and they saw it in it was seen in Michigan, or so they do, especially when they're young, in that 1 to 4 years to the 5 years, a lot of them wander. They're kind of trying to figure out where's a good territory and where to go. I would guess that a lot of these northern Wisconsin birds that are just where the territories are so packed, I think they're probably coming down to Dane County and to the other southern areas. These are probably northern Wisconsin birds that are showing up, and there's probably some of our Dane County birds that are going to establish territories that they hatched in a nest in Dane County, and they're going to be nesting in Sauk County or whatever. So there's probably a good percentage that they are in the area, but as I said, it's usually about a 500-mile radius. So it's where they can find good territory and find areas, because for example, what an ideal bald eagle nest territory is they want tall trees. They like tall trees. They like to be, 80, 90 feet up in the air. They usually like them by some sort of water source. Especially Colorado is a little bit different in that, it's a little drier out there. So you get some, very small streams, and they're most of their prey items are rabbits and prairie dogs. But in Wisconsin, it's mostly bald eagles are fish eagles. So it's typically they want to be by some sort of water source where they can fish, or at least find, waterfowl or turtles or stuff around, prey items around a water source.
Great. Somebody's wondering if the pheasant branch eagles will stay all year, and I guess I'd like to know in general, is the eagle population, do they stick around, or are they migratory in Wisconsin?
It depends. It all depends on the nest. I've had nests where I could find the pair in the nest territory pretty much 12 months a year. And then there's other nests that we know of. I can think of a couple in Dane County where, Brendan and I usually scout nests, and now some of the volunteers scout if it's their nest, and they won't see them till, mid-January. There's just no activity, nothing. So I'm assuming those guys probably migrate somewhere, take a little vacation before the breeding season, and then, come back. But there's other nests that, they'll stay there pretty much. We get reports that they're there, 12 months out of the year. So I think it all depends. But the thing that I've kind of noticed is some of the really good territories that I see, like some of the ones on the Wisconsin, or some, near the lakes or the creek or whatnot, that you would say, okay, this is a great fishing area. This is a great territory. It seems like those pairs typically stick around a little bit more. And my guess is they have to protect this territory. It's such a good it's great real estate. They want to keep that territory, so they're going to protect it. So they stick around. Where maybe some of the territories that it's good, but it's not the best, they seem to migrate. So that's my suspicion. I don't know. I don't think they've done a lot of studies on that, but it really all depends on the adults. And I know some of them split up. The male will go somewhere and the female will go another place, and sometimes they stick together. So it depends on the nest and that individual pair. And they do have, as I think our volunteers could tell you, is these eagles have personalities. They really do. It's not as evident as a human or whatnot, but they definitely have different personalities. So there is the instinct part, but there is a little bit of personality, and it's fun to watch them, and it's fun to watch different nests because they do interact a little bit different. All the nests are a little bit different in how they interact, and it's a fun experience.
As far as the pheasant branch pair goes, I saw 2 eagles on Sunday when I was out there, and I just looked at eBird, and it looks like folks are seeing a couple of eagles there throughout the fall. So, not sure if they'll stick around. They don't tell us that, unfortunately. So we'll have to just kind of keep an eye out and see what they do.
Yeah, I would think the pheasant branch pair seems to be, I get a lot of reports of people around Middleton and stuff. Yeah, that, I saw adults, and it seems like it's pretty close to Pheasant Branch, to the Conservancy. So I'm assuming it's them. So yeah, I think this pair probably sticks around most of the year. It seems like.
How big is an eagle territory? Did you tell us that?
I'm sorry, no, I didn't. It depends on the time frame. It's it's typically it's about 2-mile radius. We're seeing that mostly, you know, in Dane County as they grow in territories. I know in the Hudson Valley, where I was up in Albany, and some of the a little bit farther south, you know, in between Albany and New York City, there was some territories that were honestly like one side of the Hudson River was one nest, and on the other side, so you're talking maybe a half a mile, if that. So they will get tighter, and I imagine some of the northern counties of Wisconsin, they're probably a little bit tighter, but typically they're about 2 miles. In most areas that we monitor, it's a little bit farther. It's more like a 3 or 5 mile radius. But we are seeing some tightening up. Just for example, Dane County, we're seeing, I think usually about 2 or 3 new nests in Dane County each season is what we've found. So they are getting more and more eagle territories around. So which is awesome.
One of the interesting things about partnering with the Thousand Islands Environmental Center was to see how different the nests up there are compared to here. And it's similar to how Drew described the Hudson. On the Fox River, they are just on top of each other, and they are in super urban settings, you know, one's directly above a playground. And it's just so different in that type of ecosystem, but that river supports a lot of eagles. You know, that was the river that had the nest with the 4 eaglets and the 3 adults, and the other one that had the 3 adults and the 3 chicks. And it's just all around there. That river is apparently very productive. So it's even, you know, even within Wisconsin, there's a lot of variability.
Yeah, it's all about food and shelter, right? There's food,
Absolutely,
you're gonna
yeah.
get more of them.
Yeah, if they can find a suitable tree and a good source, that's a great eagle territory for sure.
Yeah. Are you looking to make partnerships with other environmental centers around the state, Brenna, or?
Yeah, so Drew and I have, for a couple of years, decided that our capacity is limited to how many nests we can scout. And as we get further away from Madison, where both Drew and I live, it does impact how well we can serve the volunteers in that area, because if we can't tell them where to go and where to safely set up and what to look out for and form partnerships with local landowners, then, you know, it doesn't do anyone any good. So we are interested in expanding and partnering with another organization or bird club or nature center or whatever the case may be, or maybe a couple. But we're also trying to make sure that the quality doesn't suffer for any of our current volunteers and program partners. So if there's any interest, we'd love to hear from folks.
That's really neat. It's such a tremendous program, and it's the magic of citizen science. It's just, it's well organized. You're collecting great data. The DNR can really use this, and good decisions can be made. And also, you guys do these interventions, so you'll talk to landowners and business owners, and it's good to hear that they're for the most part receptive to your help or your comments. And
I think we get more positive feedback from people than the DNR. I think there's kind of this stigma because the DNR is the governing body of the state that people get a little prickly. I noticed that in New York as well with their equivalent to the DNR. I think as far as being approached by the Madison Audubon, I think it's a little easier for people to, work with us, I guess, to help the eagles and to coexist. Because, we're not looking for landowners to not be able to use their land and kind of feel like prisoners on their own land. But, we want to make things good for the eagles as well and protect them as well.
Speaking of citizen science, one of the things that I value most when I go to my nest, and I've heard this from others too, is how you're not just watching eagles at your nest. When you're there, you are hearing all the chorus frogs and you're noticing all the willow buds. And like your phenology journal is filled with all these other things that you notice while you're out there, when the ice is off on the marsh. And it's just a really all-encompassing experience. You get to know this site so well because you spend so much time there. And it's, it really hones and tunes in your citizen science skills in general, beyond bald eagles as well.
Yeah, I mean, I've said this many times, in our trainings and talking to other of our volunteers, but my favorite time of year is kind of that May, that spring time frame where you have the eaglets getting bigger and getting more active, but you're seeing migrants coming in. You're seeing your first Baltimore Oriole. You're seeing all these cool birds coming in as well. So that was always a fun time in the spring, to be out at your nest territory, because a nest territory is usually a really good territory for all kinds of animals and wildlife. It's usually by the water. It's got a good source of food and a lot of stuff's going on. So it's always fun to go out at the nest site.
Yeah, it's so great to it's a good excuse to sit down and then just stay in one place for an hour in a beautiful natural environment. So it's beneficial in so many ways. Yeah,
absolutely.
We're coming to the end of our time. Do you guys have any other comments you want to add at this point, or nope? And we're out of questions, but this has been really interesting. Thank you very much, both of you, for your time today and for explaining this whole project. And it's really good to know about, and it's fun. Oops, I got one new message here. Hang on. We've got a couple of, somebody says, thank you so much for your dedication to this important mission. And other people have had to sign off and they're sending their thanks as well. But it's great that this program is happening, and thank you for sharing all the information with us. And I wish you a successful year next year.
Thank you for inviting us.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you.
It's been really fun. Good night. Good night, everybody.
Good night.
Thank you for
Good night.
joining us.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.